Welcome back. Last but not least, we're going to be talking about a very challenging subject, but it won't be very long because I like to stick to the basics with this. It's very difficult to tell people what they need from a supplement perspective because you could find all kinds of reasons to add all kinds of things to someone's list. But I've broken this into two categories: what you absolutely need every day and what would help you with a particular condition. So here's the bottom line. Food is always the best way to get nutrition, but the challenge is the food has to be fresh and organic to really provide the level of nutrition we often need. And that is not always the case, although we certainly make an ardent effort to buy local and to go to farmers markets and activities such as that. But we're not always able to make it happen. There's days I'm not able to make it happen, even though I know it's that important, because it's time and it's money. Some of us it's more time, some of it's more money, but those are the barriers often of eating at the level we would really like. So listen, do your best. Make sure your body can actually absorb and receive what you're giving it. You don't want to take supplementation and have your urine be the most expensive urine in town simply because nothing actually gets into your body. So how can you enhance that? We've already talked about the importance of the gut, but eat fresh, eat local if you can. Be consistent with your supplementation. Consider it something that you need as in a meal. Drink water, otherwise you can't allow the body to receive this great source of nutrition. Get your rest so your body can do its best. Exercise so you move your muscles and improve your circulation, all of which improve your absorption. And then lastly, sit down when you eat and say thank you to your body as well as for the resources that you have at your hand to do a good job. So here's the daily list. At the top of that list for me is omega-3s, and we talked about the importance of omega-3s reducing your inflammation. You can get them a couple ways. This is somewhat confusing, but the bottom line is that fish oil, if it does not contain mercury, gives you the omega-3s you really need to reduce your inflammation, EPA and DHA. And at the bottom, I've talked about what they stand for. You need about 1,000 milligrams of that collectively. Now, if you are a vegan, algae is another source because, listen, fish eat algae and it does provide the DHA, although not the EPA. And so that's a good way to go. You may need a little bit more with regard to proper absorption. Now, let's say you don't want to do that. You want to stick with plants that are grown in land. Flaxseed, walnuts, and hemp seed, they provide the alpha-linoleic acid. Now, that is one acid that your body has to consume, and you do that naturally by eating nuts. But the ALA actually can convert to the EPA and DHA, those that you get from fish oil. The problem is it's extremely inefficient. It's almost like a 1-to-5 ratio. So you need a lot more milligrams of flaxseed to get that conversion factor, if you will. So they recommend up to 8,000 milligrams of flaxseed oil, and that's about a little more than a tablespoon. Start with a little bit and work up. Don't do it all at once. So the point is you need omega-3s. I personally provide a fish oil that's mercury-free, and I don't really care what brand you use, but it's got to be top quality. Carlson is a good brand. You've got to make sure it's mercury-free. It's very, very important. Now listen, if you're eating fish that day, you probably don't need fish oil, and that's a good rule of thumb. Lastly, I would say there are some folks who are concerned about the bleeding component to fish oil, the actual fact that it challenges your platelets, but in truth, the bleeding risk for omega-3s in fish oil is very, very low, less than what you would get from a baby aspirin, so it's really not a concern. But if you are concerned, talk to your physician. The other supplement that is on the essential list is vitamin D, particularly in the northern latitudes. Why? Because sunshine is required for us to make vitamin D. It really is better termed a hormone, given the numerous things it does in our body. It helps hormone balance and brain health and absolutely reduces pain. I've seen patients not need additional care when they started increasing their vitamin D. So here's the rule of thumb. If you're in the sunlight for 20 minutes during the time of day that the sun is high overhead between 10 and 2, and 30% of your body is exposed, and you don't have it slathered with sunscreen, you probably do not need to take vitamin D that day. But sadly, that's not the case for many of us. There is one caveat for vitamin D, and I see this a lot. Sometimes physicians will be giving these huge doses, 50,000 international units, and still it's low the next time they'll go get checked. And here's why. If you're eating a poor diet, one that's typically more acidic, the absorption of vitamin D is very, very challenged. So what makes an acidic diet? Well, you would guess processed foods, too much protein as compared to fruits and vegetables, and too much sugar. So you cannot assume just because it goes in your mouth it's being absorbed if you're eating that diet that's not all that healthy. And of course, last but not least, you and I have talked about the very importance of bugs. And probiotics and prebiotics are critical for daily life. The last module goes over that in great detail. But if you were to buy a probiotic at a health food store, make sure it has at least 10 billion bugs and at least 6 different strains. I prefer that it's refrigerated, but there's some evidence to suggest it doesn't necessarily need to be refrigerated. So the next section we're going to talk about is what are the supplements you would need for a condition specific, not something you need every day, but to deal with a condition that is concerning you. So hold on, one more module and we're going to call you a graduate.